article. This is Article 13. This is the article that deals with the wind turbine proposal at the landfill, or I should more accurately say at the environmental park. And we have three speakers on this issue. We have Ann Krupspa, who is a member of the Energy Study Committee. Member, or did you chair?
I'm the chairperson.
The chairperson of the Energy Study Committee. And we have Jim Aylwood, who is a representative from the Mattocket area. Is it the Mattocket Homeowners Association?
No, the Common Sense Nantucket.
I'm sorry, Common Sense Nantucket, which is in opposition to the wind turbine. Now, the Civic League chose this one because there is a lot of interest, very strong feelings, as we know, as we've been following, on both sides of this issue. So we felt it was important to bring this item, this article, to our Meet the Articles. So we'll begin with Ann.
They've got to have the microphone in front of them.
Oh,
Isn't it there?
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that before. When you speak, if you would speak into the microphone here, you
Sure.
want to have it relatively close here, so we can
How's that?
get on TV. Okay, good. Thank you, Whitey. So anyway, we have Ann Krupspa to start us off on this.
Well, thank you, Alan, and thank you, everybody, for coming today. I'm here to talk to you about Article 13, which is an article to fund a wind turbine at the Mattocket landfill. My name is Ann Krupspa, and I'm the chairperson of the Energy Study Committee. I've been so for about 2 years now and been on the committee since 2007. Okay. So just to refresh everyone's memory, last year at town meeting, we came before you, and Nantucket voters made some pretty huge steps towards clean energy. We directed the government to allow solar development on 4 scattered sites and wind development at the Mattocket landfill. So over the course of the past 12 months, the Energy Committee has really been working diligently to fulfill the requests of the citizens that we got with that directive. As a committee, we've decided upon a suitable plan subject to minor refinements. I'm here to talk about wind, but I thought I'd give you a recap of what's going on with our the solar initiatives. There were 4 sites, as I mentioned. So at the airport, we found endangered species, and we're addressing those issues. We also have the wastewater treatment facility in Surfside. We'd like to put solar panels there. However, there's been some expansion going on there, so we need to finalize those plans. Well, actually, the DPW would do that. And then once those plans are finalized, then we'll be able to know where we can actually put these solar arrays. Sites 3 and 4, the Wannacomet water facilities, there's no large energy user on those sites, so the power that's generated there would need to be net metered to locations that are not on site, maybe in town or wherever the town buildings are. Currently, the net metering constraints are so that we need to get the Department of Public Utilities, National Grid, and Governor Deval Patrick involved. And that's getting ironed out right now, but we are making progress towards that. There's no action required on these solar events, but I just wanted to update everybody because it's curious. So anyway, here we are. This was, people might recall this from last year, Article 46. This is a wind overlay district, which is located at the landfill. The progress that we've made this past year has been pretty huge. We've engaged the public and started at the beginning of the year with reaching out to Mattocket homeowners as well as other experts on the island to really specifically look at Nantucket's needs and how this turbine would affect Nantucket. We've done feasibility studies with the help of consultants and industry experts, such as to study our wind resource, transportation issues to get the turbines to the island, environmental studies with the rare and endangered species, avian studies, human health impact studies, economic risks, such as the financial exposure to the town and the exposure to the taxpayer. We heard with the past 2 articles how much is it actually going to affect a taxpayer's bill? And the answer is about $28 for the average assessed home value of $1.5 million. So if your home is assessed higher than 1.5, it might be a little bit more. Well, it will be a little more than 28 bucks a year. If it's less, then it will be less. We have also studied wind turbines that are functioning on Nantucket. So we've looked at the high school turbine and the Bartlett turbine, and we've taken field trips to other areas in New England, talked to local communities that have experience with turbines, and tried to learn from the results. So our Energy Committee has put together what we believe is the best plan based on all of this research, which I'm not going to get into right now. It's just too much info, but we do have a website if anyone's interested, or of course, please ask me afterwards during the Q&A. Anyway, what we've decided is a one turbine, 900 kW or less would be suitable there, with a tower height of about 71 meters or less. Blade height, maximum 99 meters. The location would be the compost pad behind the MRF. Color is gray with no logos or lettering. And the lighting would be a red light as per the FAA and HDC ruling. That would be lit at night. The finances, the cost is about $3.9 million, which is paid by a temporary tax increase over the course of the 20-year bond. Savings is from cash that otherwise would be used to pay electric costs of the town, and that money would go right back into the general funds. General funds pay for things like water quality testing, in other words, our harbors, oceans, that sort of thing, roads, all these sorts of things, town employees. The beneficiaries are really anybody who uses services of the town, year-rounders, summer folk, and visitors alike. So here's a little diagram on where the site would be. If you can, you're coming here from town, and take it or leave it, it's here. Well, the turbine would be right back here. There's the old radio tower site. Some of you might remember there was a tower there that was over 400 feet tall. Here's a comparison. In Sconset, we have the Lorraine C, which is very high. It's about over 600 feet tall. The proposed Matticat turbine is right here around this. It's 99 meters to the top of the blade height when it's at the very, very top. And the the tower itself is about 70 meters. Here's the high school turbine. The old radio tower, as I said, is over, I guess it's about 460 actually feet tall. Then there's the two Eel Point cell towers, which are currently in existence. I drew this line across here so you could see it's roughly the same height as the turbine's tower. And then we have the Bartlett turbine over here too. So that's kind of puts things in perspective for us. And I like to look at the photo simulations because that really is telling what exactly is this going to look like from a lot of different places on the island. So I put a bunch of these in this presentation. Here we are. You might recognize some. I know I take my kids over here to catch some snapping turtles. Maybe some of you have done that too. But this is the view from that point. Here we are looking east from 199 Matticat Road. Now, the way we did these photo sims, you might remember we floated a balloon to the tower height, and then our consultant superimposed a picture of a turbine of about the size that, or actually the exact turbine, the 71-meter turbine that we are proposing at this time. So looking east, 168 Matticat Road, that's what it will look like. So that's about a half mile east of the landfill entrance. Looking east off North Cambridge Street. Looking southwest from Fintry Lane. Looking northwest from 239 Hummock Pond Road. So, obviously as you get farther away from the turbine and in different locations in the island, it's not going to be visible. Here we are at 109 Eel Point Road. Looking west from the intersection of Matticat Road, Cliff Road, Neil Point, not much to see here or here. Looking west down Matticat Road. This is from the old mill site, looking toward the proposed site. And this is where we are if you're coming in on the High Line, second deck, the upper deck, into the jetties. This is what you're going to see. So, the next steps. There's a couple things that we need to do in order to make this come to fruition. First step would be to approve Article 13 on March 31st. Next, the ballot question on April 10th would need to get passed. And beyond that, we would need to create an RFP, which would specify what we would like to hear from the turbine manufacturer. In other words, you can ask a turbine manufacturer to guarantee a power curve or certain specifications within our own constraints, which are specific to Nantucket. Then once the RFP is issued, that would be by the town procurement officer. There would be a committee assigned to evaluate and determine a proper vendor. Once we've selected a vendor, then we'll construct a turbine. That takes, several months. And then we'll be, hopefully, this is pretty optimistic, but it's possible, early as fall of 2013, we can be generating clean energy. And here's the bigger picture as far as the bigger plan for the island. Right now, a lot of you probably have heard about the Energy Office and the conservation efforts that they've been doing. We've been working with Mass Save to bring energy audits out here to Nantucket. Those are free audits, so if anyone would like to have a free home energy assessment, everyone is eligible for these. They can happen up to once per year. So anyway, we have been plugging this program, and if anyone would like to get on our list, please call the Energy Office. The second thing that we've been working hard on is to work on and finalize, ratify the comprehensive Nantucket Energy Plan. This is a formal conservation plan which focuses on our carbon footprint, really. It's a large energy user for us is transportation, so it's got that, and then the building conservation within heating, lighting, all that kind of stuff. That's all goes over in the energy plan. Within 1 to 5 years, we'll be installing solar and wind generation at the sites designated to us by the voters at town meeting 2011. Beyond 5 years, we'll be pursuing developing technologies such as tidal and wave and gasification. These are pretty exciting prospects, but at this time, for example, gasification, there's a moratorium in the state of Massachusetts, so it's not an option at this time, but as the technology progresses, it will certainly be something that we'll be looking into. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We have Jim Aylwood here. Jim is from Common Sense Nantucket and opposed to it. I should also mention we also have Matt Mulcahy who will weigh in from the Finance Committee's point of view after, and then we'll take some questions. Jim?
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to try to just read from my text here and not to try to stay within the minutes that we have allotted, so we'll just go right into it. The proposed Matticat turbine is a game changer for Nantucket. If approved, this turbine will send shock waves throughout the whole island that'll be felt by everyone. Make no mistake, preservation of Nantucket's heritage is truly at stake here. Construction of this turbine is effective industrialization of the entire west end of Nantucket. Industrial wind turbines were never intended to be installed near residential neighborhoods. The town is asking us to borrow at least $4 million to purchase and construct this turbine. No one knows the final numbers because the town has not obtained a professional engineer's cost estimate for construction. You will be required to override Proposition 2.5 to finance this turbine. Your taxes will go up for 20 years, and that's guaranteed. There are no cost savings to the taxpayers from this turbine, as Ann just mentioned. The town gets a lower electric bill, and the town has said that it will spend its savings on other priorities. So the taxpayers get stuck with the bills and all of the liabilities. And if any of the projections are wrong, the taxpayers will pick up those bills as well. The financial risk to the taxpayers is very high. We are not venture capitalists. This is our money. While we would all like to have more energy from renewable sources, it is very evident that while wind is free, turbines are not. Now let me describe how the turbine becomes a backdoor tax increase for the rest of the island. There's about $2 billion in property value within 2 miles of the turbine site. A nationally respected and certified appraisal expert has found that all properties within 2 miles of the turbine could suffer a 10 to 25 or even up to 40% property devaluation due to this turbine. If this happens, assessments and taxes in the West End would go down. Well, the town must get its taxes from somewhere, so that leaves the rest of the island a gift from the turbine, an automatic, compensating, permanent, and unknown tax increase. According to a nationally respected acoustical engineering firm, the noise generated by the proposed PW56 turbine will produce noise throughout the West End that exceeds state noise standards and the Nantucket Noise Bylaw. The volume and type of noise from wind turbines is projected for great distances, over a mile at night. This is why the World Health Organization recommends a 1.2-mile turbine buffer zone setback from any residential property. There are hundreds of Nantucket families with children and grandchildren inside that zone around the proposed Matticat turbine. So this is not about being green. It's about seeing red. This project is a red alert for every Nantucketer to sit up and pay attention. Everybody sitting up? There's a turbine lurking behind several big barn doors. There's no turning back once those barn doors are opened. Building a turbine will establish island-wide precedents that developers of ultra-large projects could point to as established town exemptions on height, noise, and scale. Imagine a developer proposes a 10-story hotel on Surfside Beach or in Sconset and winning that battle in court based on these turbine precedents. There has never been a structure this tall and this loud on Nantucket, ever. Once it's built, it will stay up for at least 20 years. If this turbine is built, we will all live to regret it. Please don't let the turbine pass those barn doors. This is an optional project. We're doing just fine without this turbine. This project carries too much taxpayer risk, especially for a project that is completely optional, a nice to have. After much deliberation, our own Finance Committee said it best when it voted 6-0 against the turbine just this week. Quote, "The Matticat wind turbine is not an essential service of the town," end quote. And so in the final analysis, while wind may be free, turbines are not free. The costs can be very high indeed. While this turbine will send sound waves throughout the West End, it will send shock waves throughout the entire island. In just 3 short weeks, everything we hold dear about Nantucket could start to change. This project would begin to destroy what we have inherited, what we have built, and what we had hoped to leave for our future generations. This is a moment of truth for Nantucket and for us. There is no turning back if this turbine is approved and built. If you love Nantucket just the way it is, then please come to town meeting and vote no on Article 13. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Jim. We also have Matt Mulcahy, again, Chair of the Finance Committee, to outline the Finance Committee's position on Article 13.
Thank you, Alan. Listening to both these presentations, it is a difficult choice to make. And I'd like to start off by saying that the Finance Committee received a mountain of information on both pro and against. And that's so much that we always try to read everything we've gotten that I can honestly say I couldn't get through all of it. But that being said, I do want to employ the Energy Committee and the subcommittee of the Energy Committee for all the hard work that they did working on the financial end for this wind turbine. Whether or not it passes or not, I think we as citizens should be proud of the work they did, because these are people that care. Now, as for what the Finance Committee did, we did move not to adopt the article. And there were really three reasons why we did it. The first was that, is there a question, the question came up, is that should the town even be in the energy business? And that's a question we don't have the answer for, but it's a question. And secondary to that, is it an essential service? Because going back to the earlier capital articles, is that in these economic times, the Finance Committee, being the fiscal watchdog for the town, is very selective and analyzes these projects that come up very carefully. The capital money that could be used for town projects would be used for this turbine if it was passed. So if the turbine was successful, that means that there would be potential shortfalls in other capital projects. The third area that the committee felt was that the committee feels it's more time is needed to assimilate all the data that has come in to understand what is actually being voted on. A lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation. And again, we just tried to concentrate on the financial end. So at this point, we just felt we could not recommend it, so we did move not to adopt. Thank you.
One of the things that we find in a small community, particularly an island community where we have an airport, a harbor, and all these other things, is that the money issues tend to get the voters' attention, particularly during these town meeting interviews, or these town meetings that we have. This is, as I said at the outset, a very sensitive issue, because there are, in addition to the financial questions, there are other issues that are involved here as well, as far as energy independence, as far as the larger issues of global warming, and all these have an impact on it. So we do want to take some questions. Again, if just raise your hand, I'll identify you and come up to one of the microphones and address your question, if you would, to any of the three speakers. So do we have, are there any questions that you'd like to have answered about the wind energy project, Article 13? Yes, Charlie?
Hi, Charlie Stott. Thanks for the excellent presentations, all three of you. I think we probably all heard about the blowback in Falmouth after the construction of the turbine there. But I know that there are other communities in the Commonwealth that have considered turbines, and I'd like to ask what decisions have been made in other communities about wind turbines.
All right, Ann, do you want to go first on that, or?
I'm going to defer to Whitey here. Whitey, would you mind answering that question, please?
Sure. Whitey is a member of the Energy Study Committee, so I think it's fair to let him comment on.
I'm vice chairman.
Yes.
It's interesting. Falmouth had a situation there. They had old turbines, 10 years old, and they weren't modern. And interestingly enough, they've had no problem. Their property values have not gone down. Our studies show that there's an initial dip in the value, and then once the turbine is in, the values come back to the normal state. So I think that that's sort of erroneous comment as far as what the tax implications are as far as changing the Hull, where they have turbines operating. They don't have any problem as far as property values. It's very well accepted. They're going quite well. There are various other towns around the Cape that had the turbines too close to the population. But we're in a position where the population is much further away. We've only got 3 houses within 4,000 feet, and everything else is further than that. So this is probably an ideal location, probably better than any other location on the Cape.
Great. Jim?
Yes, can I just comment on that? It's just in the last 2 years, 34 towns and cities in Massachusetts have rejected turbines. They've rejected 77 turbines. So that's number one. Number two, about Falmouth, there's been one sale of one property near the turbine, and that suffered a 37% property devaluation compared to other like properties. That was from an appraiser. In Hull, they do have 2 turbines. The Hull 1 is on its 3rd generator. That's much higher maintenance than they had expected. And the second one is down right now. It's been down for over a week, and that has now required a new generator. So that's a lot sooner than they thought. So they're on the second one there. So there are a lot of towns that are moving away from turbines. State Senate President Therese Murray has sent a letter to the town of Plymouth opposing turbines in residential locations. I just got a letter from the state representative from Plymouth today, the same thing, opposing the turbine in these types of residential areas. So the tide is turning against the turbines. I think it's because these industrial turbines were never expected to be installed near residential areas. So initially it was an experiment. Now people see what the results are. The results are quite bad. And the tide is now turning, even at the State House level. So that's the current state.
Ann?
I also wanted to add, just if we were talking about property values, we have talked to the tax assessor and we have asked her specifically, what are the effects to the property values close to the existing turbines on Nantucket? In other words, the high school turbine and the Bartlett Farm turbine. And she said that there have been no recorded negative effects to those properties.
Well, I think it's too soon to say on that. It's only really relevant from actual sales of properties. So once you have an actual sale, you can compare that to other sales in the general area and determine if there is a real turbine impact. The assessors don't really spend enough time per property because there's so many properties. 10,000 or more properties that they have to evaluate. So that's why you really need an appraiser to go in and look at this information.
Okay. Are there other questions? Jason?
Thank you, Alan. Jason Flanagan. I actually have a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Well, let's take them one at a time. And again, direct them. We'll have first Ann and then Jim, and unless there's a...
Okay, sure. On the subject of property values and with regard to your appraisal, I've looked at the studies that he cited. One was the Heinzelman study, which took place in upstate New York. It took into account...
Jason, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt here, but what we want to stick to the facts...
I'm getting there.
Okay.
In the Heinzelman study, there were 3 counties studied. Only 2 were taken into account. With regard to the LBNL study that McCann took to task, he included a graph that showed drops of up to 28%, but what he didn't include was the actual sale prices, which showed properties that have extreme views of turbines what the study deemed extreme views of turbines have actually seen price increases in their sale value. Further, he accused the LBNL study of being bought out by the Department of Energy. So I'm wondering how such a biased study that is clearly from an anti-wind representative can be used as a basis of fact.
Well, All right, I'll allow the question, although I've got to say there's a bit of a load to it. Would either one of you care to address the question?
Sure, sure. Well, we'll stand by the study, stand by the McCann study as is. All I know about one of those studies is that it included an area of 100 square miles or something like that, which would be quite a huge area for property. So I'm not deep into the property valuation information. Our property valuation study is on our website, okay? And you've read it, and we invite other people to go and read it. Thank you.
Do you want to address that?
I've read the study, the McCann study, and I can't speak for our committee, but I appreciated seeing a study that could present something that was not, I don't know, I liked seeing as many studies as I could get my hands on. However, I noted that the funding was coming from an opposition group, Common Sense Nantucket. Mm-hmm. They funded the appraiser that they purchased the study from was from Illinois, and he based his assessments on pictures, maps, etc. So that's why I did not hold much clout with that study.
All right. The issue of property values, of course, is one that's difficult to determine. There are studies on both sides of the issue, so I think we'll leave that particular one at that, and I do want to allow for other questions from the audience, okay? Does that kind of address what you wanted?
Sure.
Great, thank you.
That's fine. I'll ask again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let me see if there are other people first who would like to, yes, sir?
John Millar. I think this goes to Ann and the Energy Commission. Of the $3.9 million for the funding, how much above that will it cost to maintain the turbine for 20 years?
It's included in that $3.9 million. We have a reserve fund where we put a certain amount per year into a capital reserve fund, and anticipating any sorts of machine failures that would not be covered by the warranty of the manufacturer.
For the full 20 years?
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I just do a follow-up question?
Sure.
Who's going to be in charge of the turbine if it's built, and the town has no municipal electric light department, which is typically the department that maintains and manages these kinds of power plants?
Sure.
Who would do the maintenance of that?
We would hire a subcontractor to maintain the wind turbine. So it would not be a town employee that would be doing that, and the maintenance would be covered as well in that $3.9 million.
Excellent question. Further questions? Bruce?
Thank you, Alan. I'm Bruce Miller. Question for Jim, I think. A lot of facts and figures flying around, and I think a lot of them would be easier to grasp if there was a little bit more context. One in particular you mentioned, I think, was that there was a suggestion of a 1.2-mile buffer zone for turbines. Would that apply to turbines of any size or turbines of this size? And the logical next question would be, if in fact the turbine was going to be the size of the turbine at the high school, would the buffer zone be smaller? And what would the different parameters be for different sizes?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually, because there's different buffer zones all around the world. Most of them are 2 kilometers. They don't specify the size of the turbine. I think it should be proportional to the turbine, where you have a shorter one has a closer buffer zone kind of thing, smaller buffer zone. But there's no really set standards right now. The only set standard is, I believe it's 1 times the height or 2 times the height of the turbine tower, which really isn't enough. That's only a couple hundred feet. But it's kind of all over the place, and it could be up to the town. The town of Nantucket could adopt its own bylaw with a setback. And that's something that we'll be talking about over the next couple months.
Thank you.
Yes.
Carl Borchard, I served on the Energy Study Committee working on this for 3 years. I no longer serve on that committee, but I'm speaking today as a private citizen. I just had 2 quick comments for Mr. Aylward. I dispute the withdrawal of turbines in the state of Massachusetts. They're going up in Plymouth, and Kingston has 4 of them up right now. Fairhaven's putting 2 in. Fall River has 1 going up for the Phillips Lightoller plant that's already up. So I think it's misleading for you to say that they're being withdrawn in droves, because actually they're going up fairly rapidly towards the governor's goal of 2,000 megawatts by 2020. There are some issues with community siting. The other thing I wanted to mention was sound. You seem very concerned about sound. A modern turbine has feathering blades, which are much quieter running than older turbines such as Falmouth, and has foam insulation around the tower of the swept area of the blade, which greatly reduces the thumping you hear when the blade passes in front of the tower. There's an air compression there. So those 2 things really make a modern turbine, such as a PW56, quite quiet. And I don't think anybody within 1,500 feet, which is the closest house to this installation, is going to hear it, in my opinion. And I've done an awful lot of work on turbines for the last 11 years. So I would just ask you to consider that there are many turbines going in Massachusetts as we speak. And I rode up Route 3 the other day past Kingston, and I was stunned to see 3 working in a landfill and 1 right by the road. So they are going in. Thank you.
Okay, I guess that isn't really a question, but do either of you want to address?
Yes, I'd like to do that. Thank you for the comment. There are turbines going in. Some are not as well sited as they should be. But there have been, over the past 2 years, 34 towns that have said no to turbines, the 77 turbines, number 1. Number 2, several weeks ago, I went to Berkshire East in Charlemont, Massachusetts, to experience a PW56 turbine. The same model as this, only shorter. So it throws wind a shorter distance. We were there with members of the Energy Study Committee and with Lauren Sinatra, and we stood 4,000 feet away, 4,000 feet away, and the noise was thumping. It was much worse than we thought it would be. We have videos, there are videos on the websites that show that. Remember, and I just want to say we appreciate all the work the Energy Committee has done. We support everything the Energy Office does and the Energy Study Committee does, except for the turbine. Okay, I think you're doing a great job. But the turbine, we just need to take that off the table, and we'll be good. But there's been $350,000 spent on the study of this. Common Sense Nantucket has had to raise money from donations and volunteers. So, we don't have the depth that you folks had for 3 years. We've only been around for about 3.5 months. So, there's a little bit of a difference, but we're trying to come up to speed as fast as possible with that.
Great. Ann, do you want to add anything to that? No? Okay. Did you have a question for Matt?
I did. With all due respect, I would like to know how the FinCom is able to comment and on what basis you commented that the environmental and health effects of the turbine were, there were possible adverse health effects there. So that's why I didn't understand how the FinCom, the Finance Committee, could make a comment that would be published in the annual town meeting warrant as such.
More than happy to answer that question. The town charter allows the Finance Committee not only to adopt or not to adopt motions, but it also allows the latitude of a comment that and is not limited to financial information. Just looking in here. The word possible adverse health environmental impacts, from the amount of information that we received it wasn't just limited to financial data. And some members felt after the move to the motion not to adopt that felt strongly about including that information there. And it's certainly within the purview of the committee to do that.
Well, I did not think that it was fair that we would be evaluated upon that, and I think I'd like to ask, on which side did you receive the health and environmental effects?
Well, both sides.
Right.
So, and frankly, just from, this is not from answering from a finance committee standpoint, but the jury's still out.
I would say the Finance Committee does have 9 members on it. It's a very diverse committee, and I think over the years, it's been one of the most successful committees in terms of the work that they do. Anyone who's attended any of the Finance Committee meetings knows that there's an incredible amount of work. They have these huge binders and so on. So, anyway.
Alan, you're kind. No, you understand, I can see the question is sure. The Finance Committee is what it is. It deals with finances. But that in light, one thing about the Finance Committee is that we are in charge of dealing with, I think this year, 97 or 98 warrants. And are we experts on all of them? Absolutely not. And that's why we rely on citizens, we rely on department, the town administration to come forth and provide us information. We see our role as a gatekeeper in providing information to the public. And that's where comments come in. So,
exactly. Good. Thank you. All right. In the interest of time here, let me take one more question from someone we haven't heard from yet. And again, if you would address your question directly to one of the participants. And I'll flip a coin. Yes, sir.
My name's Ted Taylor, and I have, I guess the biggest question is, we all worry about failure. Bartlett's lost, it was out of service for a year. I know when the wind farm out in the Sound went, in the early stages, they were supposed to put money in it in case it did not work and they had to tear it apart or take it down. There would be money to do that. Has any consideration been given in all of your deliberations here, and what would the town do if it did fail?
Great. Ann?
The place where wind technology is at this time has quantified wind turbines as being 99 to 98% reliable. So the turbine that we would be purchasing would be included in that. You know, the piece of machinery itself would have experience in marine environments. So that's all part of the RFP. Once we choose a turbine manufacturer, we would be looking at the record of the turbine and making sure that that was satisfactory to us, as well as having the money in our budget to fix anything that might need to get fixed.
Is money in the budget for that?
Yes.
How much?
I just answered that question before. I think it's about 40,000. That's about right. 40,000 per year.
Per year. That's not a whole heck of a lot.
Kind
of. It adds up.
Yeah, it does.
40,000 here. And Jim, did you want to address that?
Just real quick. Turbines have been known to fail. Blade throw, we've seen it here on Nantucket at Bartlett's. There's also ice throw. So if ice builds up on the blades and the blades spin, it can fly, I believe, this model, the ice can fly 1,700 feet, which would hit Matticat Road. So that's a major issue, and they do lose their brakes once in a while, and they can get caught up in a high wind situation and explode and collapse. So there are all of these potential problems out there. And that's really one thing that we wanted to bring out and raise, is that there's a lot of risks and a lot of doubts and a lot of unknown questions. And that we're basically a second opinion here for the town. to give people two different sides of this. There's a lot of doubts, and that's why we oppose it.
And it's the size of this thing. I mean, it's 3 or 4 times the size of what's at the high school right now, and it's gigantic. If you haven't seen one in person somewhere, it really is huge.
Well, we saw from our slide that it's not much bigger than the high school turbine, and ice throw really is rare, blade throwing very rare. These are all risks that we've assessed and come to terms with. The reason why we need to get up so high is that the quality of the wind at that level is exponential, and we can get a lot more power the higher you go up. So that's why we chose that 900 kW height.
And questions abound, particularly with an issue like the wind turbine. We'll have more opportunity to discuss these questions on the floor of town meeting on the 31st of the month when I'm sure this item will be there. Mr. Willard, did you have a comment because we're ready to move on to the next item here?
I just wanted to say, as far as Bartlett's was concerned, the blade fell off. It didn't get thrown, and that was according to the Bartlett's. And generally it'll land right down below, and it probably won't go any further than the turbine height, blade throw. The ice throw, I think you've exaggerated quite a bit. Well, yes, you have. We've calculated that.
Again, these are issues where I think there are differing results. For example, at the high school, they have a brake on the engine, so once it gets to a certain speed and temperature and so on, so they do that. All right. Again, there'll be plenty of opportunity, and I see you have to come up to the microphone if you're going to talk to me there. Gray.
Yeah. To coin a phrase.
Yes, indeed.
I really thought it was unnecessary for you to be so ingratiating to the Finance Committee, because I think it was erroneous for them to act as an authority to contradict the Energy Committee. My name is Sandra Welsh. I talk a lot and try and stop me, but I think that was very, very rude of the two of you to do that. The other thing is Bartlett's turbine, when he tried to do that, the man worked for, what, 16, 17 years. We didn't have a turbine manufactured in the United States for him to go to.
Right.
Now, big business is in. Right. So there you are.
Sandy,
yes.
Thank you. And
I want you to apologize
I will.
to her.
Thank you, if you give me a moment. I do apologize for any comments. Part of my responsibility here as moderator is to keep the flow going. My comments about the Finance Committee are certainly heartfelt. I admire the work that the Finance Committee has done over the years, and I apologize if my comments indicated anything other than appreciation for the work that the Finance Committee does. I certainly didn't mean to comment on their wording on their recommendation for this particular item, so I hope that satisfies it.